From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in Peru. A judge has ordered the former President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski to spend 36 months in pretrial detention for his alleged involvement in the Odebrecht corruption case. During the hearing, a judge also rejected a home detention request from Kuczynski's lawyers. His lawyers argued that due to his age and health condition, it would be unjust to put him in prison. The former president remains hospitalized after suffering from high blood pressure.
An 18-year-old man should never be imprisoned. There is no sentence for loss of health. Prison should only take away someone's freedom, not become a progressive death penalty, something like "I'll kill you slowly."
Meanwhile, crowds have gathered for the funeral of the former president, Alan Garcia. Mourners took Garcia's casket to the streets of the capital Lima ahead of his cremation. Garcia killed himself on Wednesday when the police arrived at his home to arrest him for his alleged involvement in the Odebrecht corruption case.
With weak vital signs, Garcia was transferred to Casimiro Ulloa Hospital in Lima. According to the Interior Minister, before being detained by the police, he asked to call his lawyer, but locked himself in his room and shot himself in the temple. Attempts to save his life were in vain.
We have to say that President Garcia passed away some minutes ago. For us, the upper party members who are his family, this is an act of dignity and of great honor.
Garcia was being investigated for allegedly receiving bribes of more than $4 million from the Odebrecht construction company. The company may have benefited with multi-million-dollar projects during his time in office. For the analyst Héctor Bejar, Garcia's suicide could have negative consequences.
This will be used by corrupt people in Peru, who will declare that it's unfair political persecution. That's the most used phrase in the anti-corruption system right now. I think that here in Peru, public opinion is needed to calmly defend the system, because those who have engaged in corruption are going to ask for their trials to be stopped.
Following the untimely death of the former president, there was an immediate reaction on the streets.
I think he preferred to leave this world than to be accused of being a thief, something he had denied all his life.
Maybe he felt that his situation was already very complicated, and that's why he decided to make this decision. As a Christian and as a human being, I feel really sorry for him. However, the investigation has to continue.
He didn't want to face the judicial system. He said, "They will put me in jail," and he didn't want to be locked up.
This is how Alan Garcia avoided becoming another former Peruvian president behind bars. Alberto Fujimori and Pedro Pablo Kuczynski are currently jailed, as is Ollanta Humala. They will shortly be joined on the list by Alejandro Toledo once he is extradited from the U.S.
And at least 8 people are reported dead in Peru after a bus crashed on its way to Alan Garcia's burial. The accident occurred on the Pan American Highway some 150 kilometers north of Lima, after the bus left its lane and crashed into the retaining wall of a bridge. Authorities say there are 45 people injured.
Well, the majority of passengers suffered serious contusions. We have come to learn that there are 2 more dead at the hospital, so we're talking about 8 dead already, and in total 45 injured.
Ecuador's former Foreign Minister Ricardo Patino has rejected a warrant filed against him, accusing him of instigation. In an exclusive interview with Telesur, he said he's being persecuted for criticizing the current government.
Everything that is Correism, or everyone who has worked with Correism, they have to be annihilated. They have to be destroyed. When I see this is happening, I said to myself that I have to move away and I have to be safe, because they are not working towards justice, but they are working because of hatred and vengeances. Because when we made the government of the citizen revolution, we transformed the country and we affected the interests of the most powerful people, because we lifted people out of poverty. And they are being vengeful right now against what they had lost. Before they were the owners of the country, and in the government of the Rafael Correa government, we redistributed the wellness of the country. They didn't like it, and so they are being vengeful against us. That's what I say. Let's go to the streets. Let's go to the roads. Let's do the public institutions to fight for the rights of the Ecuadorians that are being taken into bankruptcy, and because of what I say, they want me to go to jail. This is the reason why they have started a prosecution, and they have given me a capture order for what I say inside a meeting of my party.
And during his first year in office, Cuba's President Miguel Diazcanals has faced natural disasters and a U.S. foreign policy that is trying to double down on the revolution. We have the details in this report.
Felix has a new house after he lost his previous one in a tornado that struck Havana last January. He remembers that after the natural disaster, President Miguel Diazcanals was one of the first to arrive there to make sure that the government wouldn't leave anyone behind.
He committed to help. He said they would build new houses for us and that they will be better. As you see, he kept his promise. He came here for us.
After taking office on April 19, Diazcanals made sure to respond to the people who trusted him with their votes. During this first year, he has worked relentlessly, paying attention to the demands and needs of the citizens.
I cannot promise anything. The revolution didn't either. But what I can promise is that I will work and demand that authorities fulfill our government plan in the short, medium, and long term. Only intense and efficient work will show concrete results and will help us build new victories for our homeland and socialism.
Diazcanals has also demanded leaders to take accountability for their actions while in office and has encouraged them to dialogue with the people.
He's a man that is proving that he is a man of the people. He's taking care of the problems and situations of the people, everything that worries the Cuban society. This is the most important thing.
Economist Esteban Morales considers that one of the government's most important achievements has been to build a more collective government.
He is really pushing to drive away from having a bureaucratic government. He has built an honest government that tackles corruption and other administrative problems. He has also built a government that answers to its people.
The Cuban government is also facing new aggressions from the United States. Diazcanals has said his foreign policies will remain the same and that nobody will weaken the revolution.
In other news, hundreds of mourners in Northern Ireland have joined the funeral vigil of Irish journalist Lyra McKee, who was shot during overnight riots in the city of Londonderry. According to police, the 29-year-old journalist and author was shot and killed by a stray bullet while she was reporting on riots in the city's Cregan neighborhood. They added that a murder investigation has been opened, though no arrests have been made so far.
The senseless murder of Lyra McKee has left a family without a beloved daughter, a sister, an aunt and a great-aunt, has left so many friends without their confidant. Victims in the LGBTQIA society or community are left without a tireless advocate and an activist, and it's left me without the love of my life, the woman I was planning to grow old with. We are all poor for the loss of Lyra. Our hopes and dreams and all of her amazing potential was snuffed out by a single barbaric act.
The police has described the killing as a meaningless action that has achieved nothing more than causing pain for her family and friends. Speaking during a press briefing, the deputy police chief described McKee as a great journalist who died doing her job with great courage. According to the police, the rioting started after police entered the area to conduct searches for weapons. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Reporters Without Borders has reported that Latin America has become less safe for journalists in the last year. A report by the organization highlighted the killing of journalists in countries such as Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala. And Mexico is listed as the third most dangerous place in the world to be a journalist. It also made a special mention of Brazil, where the election of President Jair Bolsonaro has increased threats against journalists.
Latin America is very characterized by situations of extreme violence against journalists. In Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, and evidently, if we go a bit further up, in Mexico, where we had 10 journalists killed in 2018, which makes it the third deadliest country in the world for journalists in 2018.
I am not scared to come out of my home and go to my office to work, but I am scared that my profession is being restricted in some way by institutional, executive, and legislative powers getting in the way and preventing me doing my job as a journalist in a free way.
Faithfuls around the world are celebrating Easter to mark the Bible story of Jesus' death and resurrection. In El Salvador, people celebrated with processions that feature costumes depicting religious figures such as Jesus, the Apostles, and Virgin Mary. The processions were accompanied by marching bands who played religious pieces while marchers paraded through the streets. Artists in Paraguay have also joined the millions of people that are commemorating Easter across the world this weekend. The artists put their skills to use by creating sand sculptures as part of their contribution to the Easter celebrations. And Catholics in Mexico came together to perform the procession of the flagellants and the crucified, the highlight of Holy Week. Faithfuls wearing black hoods marked the dark mood ahead of the crucifixion of Jesus. Others flocked and shacked themselves in chains while carrying logs to represent the cross. The procession seeks to recreate the last moments of Jesus' life.
For the event, you are not allowed to show your face, to hold on to your identity. Also, this is the vow that each worshipper carries out in expression of gratitude for the year ahead.
And a craftsman in Bosnia is fighting to preserve the Easter tradition of decorating eggs with iron. Stjepan Biletic is one of the few remaining Bosnian blacksmiths who know how to nail an iron decoration into the delicate egg shells without breaking it. Motifs like horseshoes symbolize happiness, while the egg itself symbolizes the beginning of life. Biletic wants to include the Easter tradition dating back to the 18th century on the UNESCO Cultural Heritage List. Thousands of Catholics in Bolivia have taken part of a 150-kilometer procession. They are showing their faith for the Virgin of Copacabana.
For the past 25 years, Nelo and Vilma have walked along with 10 of their friends for 150 kilometers, which separate capital of La Paz and the Temple of the Virgin of Copacabana, near the border with Peru.
This is one of the most traditional pilgrimages in the world. I have read a lot about it. We have prepared for this event.
It's a show of faith. We have a very strong faith for the Virgin. We want the Virgin to always remember our country.
The procession takes 3 days on foot. The walk passes through the Titicaca Lake. By bicycle, the trip can take a day and a half at least.
Due to my devotion to the Virgin, this is the 5th year that I'm doing this trip. I brought my brothers and my brothers-in-law with me. It's their 4th year taking part of this.
I'm asking for good health for my family, my father, my mother, my siblings, and that she always takes care of us.
Every year, thousands of worshippers take part in this Holy Week tradition. Security measures are put in place to protect them.
We usually work on first aid, healing wounds, cramps, and giving them water. As you can see, we have a tanker filled with drinkable water. We offer that as well.
This sacrifice responds to a common devotion among worshippers. The image of the Virgin of Copacabana was sculpted in 1583 by the indigenous Yupanqui people who believe in her miracles.
It is a gathering with God to strengthen our spirit and our faith. Because we are carrying the cross of our Lord, we are feeling His fatigue and His suffering.
There are medical posts organized by the firefighters and the Red Cross along the road. The police also organize a security operation with at least 1,000 officers. Every year, about 10,000 people participate in this traditional procession.
The Muriel Franco house has opened in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The space for culture and resistance is inspired by the feminist, LGBTQ, and Afro-descendant struggles that the Rio de Janeiro councilwoman believed in. A little more than a year after her murder, it is still not yet known who ordered the murder of Muriel. It's been 5 years since the death of Colombian writer and Nobel laureate Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The writer of 100 Years of Solitude lived in Barcelona for almost 8 years. Let's take a look at how the Catalan capital remembers him.
Pensar que este amor nuestro tiene que morir antes de que estas cosas pasajeras estén habitadas por la muerte.
An actor recites an article written by Gabo in 1948 for the Colombian newspaper El Universal. It shines a light on Garcia Marquez's career as a journalist. Though it's not a segment from The Autumn of the Patriarch or Strange Pilgrims, the two books he wrote during his time in Barcelona. This is part of a literary walking tour about Gabo. It showcases the writer's poetic side while revealing the streets in which he walked.
Garcia Marquez settled down here between 1967 and 1975 for almost 8 years, during which he lived in 6 different places, but mainly in the neighborhood of Sarria. He used to work here, enjoying the much-needed tranquility for his writing.
He lived in this very building, number 6, Caponata Street. Some of the locals still remember him, in his blue jumpsuit, getting up early and always writing.
In the house, the library didn't draw much attention. It was never the protagonist. Instead, each visitor would be amazed by the sound equipment of Garcia Marquez.
The tour also allowed participants to meet with people like Jaime Abello, who knew Gabo personally and came to Barcelona especially for the occasion.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez wasn't just my boss and a person who changed my life, but also an inspiration. I admire his sense of humor, his humanism, his willingness to see, hear, and absorb reality. I share his love for journalism and literature, and of course for the Caribbean and Latin America.
This literary tour is just one of the many activities organized by the Colombian Consulate and the Casa América Catalunya.
I truly believe he was one of the most extraordinary human beings I have ever met in my life. He had an ability to truly understand human beings who helped him become such a great writer.
All of the events showcase that Barcelona meant for Gabo and what Gabo meant until today for Barcelona.
He once said that Barcelona was the most wonderful city in the world and the best place to write.
It was also announced that Barcelona will host a journalist festival dedicated to Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
We have more stories coming up. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us again. At least 13 people have died in South Africa when a wall collapsed at the start of an Easter service at a Pentecostal church. According to emergency services, 29 people were rushed to the hospital after the collapse in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Most of the victims were reportedly women that were sleeping inside the church. Survivors of a deadly bus crash on the Portuguese island of Madeira have attended a church service to mourn those who died in the accident. The memorial mass was conducted by a Presbyterian church located in the island's capital. At least 29 people were killed after a bus veered off a steep road. 27 people were injured and taken to a hospital. Portugal's public prosecutor's office has opened an investigation into the accident. And Portugal's president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, also paid his respects by visiting the site of the accident. The president laid a flower wreath at the site, and a minute of silence was held for the victims.
Naturally, there are institutions that deal with that. It's not the role of the president. I'm here to follow what is happening, but above all, to pay my respects and solidarity, gratitude and determination.
Climate change protests continue across Europe, in London, Paris and Rome. In Paris, Greenpeace activists blocked hundreds of employees from entering the headquarters of Banque Société Générale, the state-run utility EDF, and oil giant Total. They said they were protesting against the company's links to the oil and gas industry, which they say is a driving force in global warming. Activist Greta Thunberg was in Rome to join the demonstrations.
Humanity is standing at a crossroads. We must now decide which path to take. How do we want the future living conditions for all species to be like? We are here today because we have decided which path we want to take. And now we are waiting for the others to follow our example.
Thousands of protesters in Algeria have returned to the streets to demand for radical democratic reforms after the resignation of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. The huge protests took place in many cities across the country, including the capital, Algiers. The protesters are also calling for the immediate resignation of the head of the military, General Ahmed Gaid Salah.
We came out today to change the entire regime from its roots. Youth and old men are with us. We will not tire, and we will confute the protests every Friday until the regime falls. They all must leave. We are determined.
The entire Mali government has resigned following a massacre of 160 Fulani herders by an ethnic group 4 weeks ago. The government was heavily criticized by its handling of an upsurge of violence in the center of the country. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta accepted their resignation. Thailand has hosted its first ever wheat festival to promote medical cannabis. The festival is aimed at educating the public about the medicinal use of cannabis and the cultivation of marijuana. In December, Thailand became the first Asian country to legalize marijuana for medical use and research in a region with some of the world's toughest drug laws. Thais used marijuana in traditional medicine and in cooking for centuries before it was banned in 1934.
They hesitate for too long. There are other players in the market, other countries that is already going for it as well. Malaysia has already come far. They have already issued some licenses, both for commercial growing and for research. So yeah, they have to make a decision quickly. Cannot wait and hesitate for too long.
And with that, we end our news brief, where you can read more on these stories by going to our website, telestorenglish.net. And be sure to also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
Our actions have an impact on the environment.